It's Em. Here to talk about A Restless Truth, which was the sequel to A Marvellous Light. If you've watched my videos, you know A Marvellous Light was one of my favorite books of last year. This book is good, not as good, and let's talk about it. So to catch you up to speed with the overall story, because this is the second book in a planned trilogy called the Last Binding Trilogy, I believe. In the first book, we establish a magic system in England, specifically. It's Edwardian England, where magicians use something called cradling, which is a fancy term for handwork that they can make spells with, fancy finger work, basically. It's a very, very interesting magic system. There are different strengths, like some are stronger with runes and some with imbuements, meaning you can put the magic into items. So it's really, really interesting, and yet somehow not super concrete in my mind. I don't know if I'm just not getting it all or if some of it's still very vague in the way it's written. I like it though, and what's there leads me to believe there's more. Like, the stuff that I've been given allows me to believe that there's a larger foundation to this system. So I appreciate that, because in my mind that's good world building. In any case, this is a very Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows-esque story in which there are 3 magical objects, part of what's known as the last contract. This contract happened between English magicians and the Fae. The Fae gave magic to the magicians in order for their promise to take care of the land, basically. And these 3 objects are part of that contract. There are some bad people trying to get these 3 items, and obviously our heroes are also trying to get these 3 items, because when brought together, the power can be used for good or ill, right? The 3 items are in the possession of 3 old women who, I guess, found them when no one was looking. It's a little bit of an odd story. There's actually 4 old ladies, but only 3 of them had the objects, because there were only 3 objects to have. And in the first book, we talk about finding the first item, and this book focuses on the second item. The first book was about Robin and Edwin, characters who I absolutely fell in love with. And this book shifts focus to Robin's sister Maud, who has gone to America to contact one of these old women magicians who has one of the magical items to protect it and her and bring them back to England. So the entire story, or almost the entire story, takes place on a, Atlantic crossing, as Maud, it's not spoiling anything to say the very first chapter, the old lady is murdered by bad guys, but we don't know who they are. And then Maud has to try and solve the murder and figure out what the magical object is, because she was not given that information in order to keep it protected. Only the old lady knew what the actual magical item was. They only know it's made of silver, because all of the items are made of silver. So she gathers a ragtag team of accomplices to try and solve the murder, find the object, yada, yada, yada. It's, I think, probably actually better plotted and more tightly paced and everything than the first book. And I enjoyed it overall, but the central love story between Maud and a magician named Violet didn't do anything for me. I just did not feel the chemistry there, and the love scenes just, I don't know, for me they weren't all that interesting. So there's something about Violet's character. Now, Violet is she's leaving America to go to England to claim an inheritance, and she had been in America as basically a theater performer, and the Théâtre des Vampires, but now we've got this theater of magicians in New York City, and she's pretty guarded. She puts on a certain persona most of the time, and Maud's goal is to kind of chip away and find the real Violet, and also learn about sex, apparently. I don't know, but I know that Violet is supposed to be a guarded character, but even as she opens up, I did not feel like I really knew her or understood her in any like fundamental way. I just couldn't connect to her character. I mean, I thought she was sharp and witty, but I don't know, I didn't feel it. And since I couldn't feel her, I just didn't feel the connection between her and Maud, really, which is a shame, because I do feel like sapphic and lesbian relationships in books tend to get short shrift a lot of the time. So I was hoping for something really amazing here, and for me, it didn't play. There's also just a lot of characters in this that I assume in the last book might be important or might come back. It was a lot to keep track of, and not all of it felt necessary, like the opera singer and her husband, things like that. They're just, I don't know, I assume somewhere down the line it'll matter. I'm gonna trust the author that there's a point. I did really enjoy seeing more of Lord Hawthorne. Still kind of hung up on the fact that his courtesy title is Baron when his dad is an Earl. Why isn't he using the Viscount title? I kind of go, is this his dad? Is this a sign that his family shows no confidence in him as the next Earl, and they're not willing to give him the Viscount title? I don't know. It's a weird little hang up for me, but it's fine. I think I love Edwin and I love Hawthorne, and I think it's because I love my reticent guys who are slow to warm up. They hold a lot of things in, so that's my type. And obviously I was pleased to see lots more Lord Hawthorne being sardonic and at moments a little bit vulnerable, which was nice, and also a little bit amusing, which is also nice, since in the first book he's quite harsh. But anyway, I gave it a 4.5, so a little bit less than A Marvellous Light, which I think I gave a 4.8 or 4.9, not quite 5 full stars, but yeah, I mean, it was good. The mystery part was pretty good, although there was a lot of false leads, which for that, I mean, that's, I think, typical of the genre, but at some point it started to feel a little bit frustrating, which maybe is the point. Maud is frustrated, everybody's frustrated that the things that they're doing keep running into dead ends, or the goalpost keeps moving, or whatever. But overall, yeah, I mean, it was a solid read. And if you liked the first book, well, here's the thing. I've noticed a lot of people who loved the first book didn't like this one as much, if at all. And I don't know if that's because people who like a gay relationship maybe aren't into the sapphic thing. I could go either way. Go ahead, quote me. But or I don't know, if you fall in love with characters and then have that kind of ripped out from under your feet and are stuck with different characters, sometimes that. I remember for me, when I was reading Tana French, I love In the Woods. It's one of my all-time favorite books still. But when I picked up, what was the second one? The Likeness. I I was so mad that Rob wasn't the main character that I refused to read The Likeness for like almost a decade, I think. Like a really long time, okay? Like I was just like, I'm not reading that book, I'm so mad. And I finally read it and read the rest of the, Dublin Murder Squad books and really enjoyed most of them. But there's a little bit of effrontery there when you're like, I loved these characters, why have you taken them away from me? I again will trust that we will see more Robin and Edwin in the big finale, that it'll all come together. Right now, as things stand, the bad guys have one object, the good guys have one object, there's one object to get. It's very Amazing Race or something. I don't know. I've never seen Amazing Race. I don't actually know if it's like the Amazing Race, but it's very much that kind of thing. So, so anyway, but yeah, overall, it was a good read. It was a good read. I've had a lot of good reads this year. Knocking on wood now that that stays true. I'm still reading husband material, and obviously Queen of the Damned is still on my nightstand. I focused on this since it was a library book, and I do have to return it because since it's a new book, they restrict how long you can keep it. So I wanted to get it read and turned back in. So, if you've read it, let me know your thoughts. If you liked A Marvellous Light, I'd like to hear about that. If you hated A Marvellous Light and never want to read another book in this series, tell me about that too. Tell me your thoughts. And I will see you next time. Take care.